Death of a local activist causing mayhem in the city I love. Atlantic's got problems too. After violence disrupted the otherwise peaceful protests over the death of a local activist, Atlanta Mayor Dickens and the police chief, Darin Schierbaum, they made it very clear during a joint presser, they support and protect the First Amendment right to peacefully protest, but that there is no room for violence in the city too busy to hate. Demonstrators were demanding investigation into the death of 26-year-old protester Manuel Esteban Paez Teran, killed by Georgia state troopers during a sweep of Intrenchment Creek Park. That was on Wednesday. Officials said troopers don't have body-worn cameras recording encounters, just their dash cams. Additionally, 7 people were arrested during the sweep, charged with domestic terrorism. That area is the planned site for the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. Investigators said Sharon did not comply with commands by a joint task force and that he fired at a trooper first. That from Fox 5 in Atlanta. On Friday, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation released this picture of the gun the agency said they found on Teran. Officials said ballistic investigators matched that gun to the bullet that wounded the trooper. Teran's mother, Belkis, spoke to CNN by phone from Panama Saturday night, expressing disbelief in law enforcement's recounting of the incident. They said he had a gun. If he had one, it was for protecting himself against the animals in the forest. That's what I understand. That from his mother. Activists associated with protesting the facility also disputed law enforcement's account, calling Teran a forest defender working to fight environmental racism. They said he identified as non-binary, was a sweet, warm, very smart and caring person. Following a Friday memorial service, friends called Teran Tortuguita. The chief said a crowd gathered for a peaceful protest at underground Atlanta. For about an hour, people dressed in black marched along Peachtree Street, downtown Atlanta. They demanded justice. However, when that group arrived at the intersection of Ellis Street and Peachtree Street, the group inside that marching crowd decided to start committing illegal acts, including breaking windows and attacking police cruisers that were in the area, according to the chief. He went on to say some of those individuals were actors who have participated in other protests in the past. Mayor Dickens said some of them even carried explosives. Fox 5 live when one of those vehicles suddenly bursts into flames. Individuals also seen on camera busting out the windows of another police car. 3 businesses along Peachtree Street also had window damage, but no protesters or officers involved reported injuries. Now, the chief said within 2 blocks, the illegal activity stopped. 6 individuals were arrested. And let's leave that right there. Naja Gear, 24 of Nashville, Tennessee. Madeline Viola, 22 of Spokane, Washington. Ivan Ferguson, 22 of Nevada. Graham Avat, 20 of Decatur, Georgia. Francis Carroll, 22 of Kennebunkport, Maine. And Emily Murphy, age 37 of Grosse Isle, Michigan. Each charged with 4 misdemeanors and 4 felonies. Mayor, if you could start with the picture and react to that, the arrestees.
Yeah, I'm baffled that people are charged with domestic terrorism for protesting, but we can't get domestic terrorist charges for people running up in the Capitol on January 6th.
That part.
Amazing how swift they are to put down protest, and to hear a mayor who was an activist himself, Andre, come out and defend property over people. Because let's be honest, all of that property can be replaced and will be replaced by insurance checks. This young man, this activist life will not be back. And I think it's interesting that one, he's portrayed by everybody that knew him as a pacifist. Someone who wouldn't hurt an animal let alone another human who slept in the woods for 6 months, protecting the woods from what was gonna be.
Environmentalists.
Exactly. For 6 months, he slept out there with no incidents. And it wasn't until police officers started to sweep people out so they wouldn't affect construction of Cop City. People that don't know what Cop City was, is this 85-acre place they were building to have a training ground, so supposedly to lift the morale of police officers. And I think these people were pushing back on the idea that we need more acreage dedicated to people who are committing murders, just like we saw of this activist, this young environmentalist. As it pertains to those who were arrested and where they were from, it's interesting to see that people all over this country are coming down to the South to protest what looks like an abuse of taxpayer dollars to build more policing when we got so much homeless problems in Atlanta, and we're not spending $85 million or whatever, $90 million to build a facility for them and to house people, but we still are spending more and more resources on a police department that has so many flaws. And I think now that we see that this was a state trooper, immediately we hear that the governor has a comment about who's going to investigate. So you have the state troopers investigating themselves, and they are the only people that say that they found a gun, and we have no camera footage to prove them wrong, which means this story will go just that way.
Wow. Yeah, they're training for war. That's what they need this facility for, boost morale. Training for war, Mayor. And I don't want to date myself, but as a little girl growing up in the Philadelphia area, I remember Mayor Good's struggle. Black mayor, Philadelphia, and Frank Rizzo, the powerful white police chief. And that's how we ended up with MOVE, which may not be charged, but that was murder. And I wonder if you could speak to the relationship between black mayors and police chiefs. Now, Atlanta's had police chiefs, diversity, but the relationship nonetheless, the push-pull, somewhat beholden, although I know Mayor Dickens would not appreciate that word, but speak to that.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the idea that Democrats feel like they have to show up and abide by Republican talking points. You hear Democrats, even Joe Biden, all the way down to the local level. You hear politicians talking about tough on crime or not in my city, or we need to support police officers at all costs. When we know to say that is to discount what black people are living through as it pertains to the torture and terror that police officers enact on our communities, black and brown people in this case. And I think Andre finds himself in an interesting position where he has to make a choice where he's going to remain the activist at heart, or he's going to become the politician that defends property and people and status quo behavior, which is taking the side of police officers in the face of what seems like a murder where we don't have, like I said, we don't have footage to say that the officers are wrong because they weren't wearing their body cameras.
Is it finally done, Mayor? And I'll leave you with this quickly as we're about to go to break, where people are just supposed to accept what the police version is. I mean, I fought that from the inside as a journalist for decades when I was handed a slip of paper with the police account and I was told to spit it out and I refused. It's got to be qualified, doesn't it?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think and when you say people are no longer, I think this younger generation, because it's probably the blackest and brownest generation we've ever had, Z and also millennials, 42% something other than white, people are not sitting idle like our grandparents. We're not a small portion of the population that's willing to be killed by this force, talking about police institutions, and not say anything about it. There's something completely wrong with how we police black and brown bodies in this country, and people are absolutely fed up with it.
Now listen, young people, the browning of America. It's a beautiful thing.